introduction. But we we appreciate you, Lawrence. I wanted to have you on here. Great example of the church, great pillar, man of God. But we were talking about some things. You said you grew up in a Catholic church, and at that time, during those years, you actually wanted to be a priest.
When you're young, you look to people that you can emulate.
Yeah.
And growing up in going to church, and I was in a Catholic school. There were a couple of young priests that were there that were the kind of guys that, one guy would stand next to one of the poles that supports the awnings and stuff, and he would turn himself out like an acrobat, just have, levitating sort of, using his arms straight from the pole. So for a young man, it's like, whoa, I want to look to something like that. So I was an altar boy for a little while, and then, so being in the faith, you're looking to go to that direction. And so, yeah, I wanted to be a priest, but not like the ones we know about.
Yeah, that's good. Similar to Diana, you said during those years, while you guys were all attending the Catholic Church, your parents ended up separating, and that ended up bringing you kind of, out of the church, not necessarily out of your faith at the time, but explain those years.
Yeah, listening to my wife's testimony, it's really amazing how cohesive and how much of a background mine was similar to hers.
Sure.
I knew who Jesus was, I had the image of him on the cross, bloody and all that, because that's what the Catholics had at that time. But I knew who he was, and going to church and stuff like that, I knew that I wanted to be a priest and stuff. And when the family went through a divorce, my dad divorced my mom, so he got kicked out of the church, and we stopped going. But about that time, I was already a blackout drinker, and on my way to getting worse and worse. By the time I was in high school, it was that way. Every time I drank, I was a blackout.
Now, you said this was actually around 14.
14, 15.
Wow.
I started drinking when I was about 7. I would pop open a beer for my dad.
7 years old, yeah.
And then by about age of 10, I'd pop open 2 of them at the same time so that he wouldn't hear the second one open, and I'd give him one, and then I would finish the other one.
And he was all right with that?
Yeah, he didn't have a problem. He just couldn't figure out why he went through so much beer so fast. But it was normal. It was okay. I mean, it seemed innocent enough. Like I told you, but it started to destroy my life. At a real young age. I lost direction. My dad remarried right away, and that was a real tough situation because. She married my dad so that somebody could watch her kids, and he married her so that somebody could watch his kids, and nobody was watching any kids. And it was tough. There was a lot of animosity. I hated my stepmother, and I wanted to be like my dad, but it's amazing how much I really was like him. And it got worse and worse as I got older.
Yeah. And you said your mother ended up passing away.
When I just gotten out of 9th grade, I just graduated, not graduated, but school was over.
Sure.
And I was in a Catholic school. All the rest of my brothers and sisters were in public school. So I got out a little bit earlier. I came home, and my dad, sat me down and said, there's been a terrible accident. Your mother's passed away in a house fire. And it was real difficult for me because I didn't know my mom. And this is my mom, but I had absolutely no feelings one way or the other. I mean, I knew something terrible had happened. The words conveyed what it was, but I had absolutely no emotion about her passing away. And it haunts me to this day. I don't even think about it that much, but at that young an age, I'd already developed animosity and a bitterness and a hatred towards people, and I didn't even realize it.
Yeah. So, you said a lot of these things happened in your life, and you didn't get saved years later. What happened in the meantime? Did your life suddenly spiral out of control, or was it just little compromises here and there?
I was pretty much out of control right from the beginning. It didn't spiral anywhere. It just threw me straight down. But I kept getting involved in situations and relationships and circumstances and stuff that just continually perpetuated my problems. I got involved in drugs at the age of 18. The first time I smoked a joint was after high school graduation. Introduced to cocaine right after that. And shortly after that, it was just into crystal and the meth and they say it's a gateway drug, but it is.
Sure.
It starts with one and works its way up. But I knew a lot of religious people. They were churchgoers and stuff, and I just didn't want anything to do with them.
Yeah.
I knew who I was. I knew who God was, and I just knew I was going to hell. I was going to hell, and I might as well just enjoy my life while I'm here. And who really cares,
Sure.
And it drove me to do some pretty insane things that I'm not proud of, things that I don't want anybody to know. And I finally got to a point where I sat in my living room, and I'm off of a 4-day binge, cocaine, alcohol, and all that kind of stuff. And a complete wreck in my life. And I'm sitting on the couch, and I'm trying to write on a yellow legal pad while my life wasn't going the way I wanted. And I could not put the pen down on the paper. It just wouldn't write on the paper. So I'd get up and I'd go run around the house. I was basically insane. And then I came back and I sat down and tried to write it again while my life's not going the way it's going. And the TV was on, and I noticed a nice sunny day commercial on there, so I stopped to look at it, and all of a sudden it started to pan back a little bit, the sides started to get darker, and the voice on there said, the only place that it admits more drug and alcohol abusers than the care unit, and then a shovel comes over and drops a big load of dirt on the screen. So basically, it's the cemetery, I'm like, oh, God, that's me, So I called them, and I went into the treatment center. I was there for 30 days. God really started to move in directions in my life, ordering some things. I had no relationship with him at all, but he was faithful enough to move behind the scenes to help me get to a point.
Sure. Were you trying to ask God to come in your life at that time?
I wrote a journal while I was in there, and I knew I had problems with relationships. And one of the things that I wrote in that thing was, God, if you want to bring somebody in, if you want somebody for me, you're going to have to bring them into my life. I'm sick and tired of chasing and just making a mess of it. And that was, I just wrote it in there. And so I was working steady at a job. I had things. I was just a complete shell of a man, basically. And we were in the grocery store, and we got robbed one time, and they had the gun to the back of my head. I'm laying on the ground. They're robbing one side here, they're robbing another side with the cashiers, and I'm in fear for my life.
And they have a gun up to your head?
Yeah, it was up to the back of my head, and he's demanding me to open the safe.
Sure.
But it's on a time lock, so I'm like, I'm really screwed now. And the guy that's robbing the cashiers, one of the clerks there, real religious guy. And the guy said, just give me the money out of the drawer. He said, well, would you like the checks? You could cash the checks too. No, just give me the money. And he said, well, I got some food stamps here. They're just as good as money. You can take the, just give me the money, And I'm sitting there, just give him the money. And then I hear him say, would you like the postage stamps? Because
Oh,
there was some
gosh,
money there.
yeah.
And at this point, I'm about ready to lose it.
Yeah.
And I hear this loud bang, and I thought the guy had shot me. I thought that was it.
Yeah.
I didn't feel nothing, but it was just right next to my head. And he had taken the cash register drawer and dropped it right next to me because he was so frustrated that he didn't get any money out of there. And so they left, and I went over to the guy that was, wanting to give him the food stamps and stuff. And I go, "What are you doing?" And he says, "Well, I felt the peace of God on my life, Well, that's good for you, but I would have gone to hell, And so,
Is that what made you change? That moment in life?
no.
You're a stubborn one.
What ended up happening, he told me later that the people in his church, some lady, it was a Wednesday night, and
Sure.
some lady had told him, all of a sudden God put it on my heart to have us pray for you, Cameron. And he's like, "Well, what time was it?" And it was the exact same time that robbery was going on. But what ended up happening is I got tired. But then this lady came into the store and just knocked my socks off. It was my wife now, but she wasn't then.
Yeah.
So I started chasing after her. I would open up a check stand just to make sure that she could get to the grocery line.
Very nice.
I'd take her groceries out to the car, even though she only had a bag.
Did you do that for all your customers? Or?
No.
No.
And she told me that, I was a sinner and that, Jesus could help me. And
Yeah.
I'd had enough with all that.
Sure.
She was persistent in her witness to me, and she didn't come in and tell me that, she goes to church and had a 12-pack of beer and a carton of cigarettes on the counter. It was always a faithful statement to me, and that triggered me to see what it was about. So I came to the church on a Saturday night like this. Smoke machine going off.
Was it
small
just a little corner like Diana just
Actually, it had gotten a little bit bigger by then.
Yeah.
It was a smaller room, like a bathroom size.
Oh, we were moving up, huh? Yeah. On our way up.
But I was real uncomfortable in there.
Sure.
People were talking to me. They were friendly. They were good people. Don't get me wrong, but I was just uncomfortable in there. The smoke machine
Sure.
and the crowd and the noise.
What made you want to make the decision?
When I left that night, I went to the casino that was full of smoke, a crowd, and all the noise and stuff, and I was uncomfortable there too. And,
Yeah.
It's like, okay. So about 4 months later, I came to church and I fell asleep during the service because they had the hard chairs.
That good, huh?
And then there was a time where it was right after that, I went back and Pastor Looney was preaching on Jesus, and I got my heart right because I realized that this is what I needed to be, and that was just over 19 years ago.
Yeah.
Jesus.
Well, Lawrence, we look at your life now. You guys look like it's all together. It's it's almost like I'm talking to a different person. You're telling me the past, but that's just incredible. The conversion power of God. Let's give it up for Lawrence Holden. Thank you for being